Tom Parker wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the maintenance tunnel of Starbase Alpha. The fluorescent lighting flickered above him, casting dancing shadows on the metal walls. As the only human maintenance engineer on the station's night shift, he was used to being alone in these cramped spaces. Another day, another credit, he muttered to himself, checking his tablet for the next repair location. The station's computer had reported a malfunction in Section E7, a restricted area usually reserved for diplomatic guests. As he approached the section, his tools rattling in his belt, he heard something unusual. A strange humming sound followed by irregular clicks. Tom had worked with machines long enough to know when something wasn't right. This wasn't the normal sound of a malfunctioning air filter or a broken generator. He rounded the corner and stopped dead in his tracks. There, in the middle of the diplomatic suite, stood the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She was tall, with a body that seemed to be made of flowing crystal and light. Her form was humanoid, but her skin was transparent, showing complex patterns of energy flowing beneath. She was clearly artificial, yet there was something hauntingly alive about her. The being turned to face him, her movements graceful despite the obvious malfunction, causing her right arm to twitch uncontrollably. "Help requested," she said, her voice a mixture of musical tones and digital sounds. Tom's tablet suddenly lit up with information. "Warning. Restricted area. Occupant. Princess Ada of the Crystalline Empire. Organic life forms prohibited from direct contact." He hesitated for a moment. The Crystalline Empire was famous for their advanced technology and infamous for their disdain of organic life forms. Their artificial royalty was treated with almost religious reverence. Yet here was their princess, clearly in need of help. "I'm just a maintenance worker," Tom said, taking a careful step forward. "But I can try to help if you'll let me." The princess's crystal features shifted, forming what might have been a smile. "Other engineers refused. Said, organics cannot understand our systems." Tom moved closer, pulling out his diagnostic tools. "Well, they haven't met this organic yet. I've been fixing things since I could walk. May I?" She nodded, the movement causing small rainbows to reflect off her crystal surface. For the next hour, Tom worked carefully, tracing the problem to a quantum stabilizer that had become misaligned. It was complex technology, but the principles were similar to the engines he used to fix back on Earth. He talked as he worked, explaining what he was doing, and to his surprise, the princess responded with intelligent questions and observations. "There," he said finally, closing the access panel on her arm. "Try that." Princess Ada moved her arm smoothly, the earlier malfunction completely gone. She turned to Tom, and this time her smile was unmistakable. "You have done what our own engineers claimed impossible. An organic being, understanding and repairing crystalline technology." "Sometimes fresh eyes see things differently," Tom shrugged, packing up his tools. "Plus, machines are machines. They all follow logical patterns if you know how to look for them." "You are different," Ada said, studying him with glowing eyes. "Most organics fear us. You treated me like a person," Tom suggested, "because that's what you are, whether you're made of crystal or flesh." A soft chime echoed through the room, the sound of Ada's laughter. "Tom Parker, you are either the wisest or the most foolish human I have ever met, perhaps both." As Tom prepared to leave, Ada called out, "Will you return tomorrow? I find myself curious about organic perspectives on mechanical systems." Tom turned back, a grin spreading across his face. "Same time tomorrow then, Your Highness." "Please," she said, "call me Ada." As Tom walked back through the maintenance tunnels, he couldn't stop smiling. He had no way of knowing that this simple repair job would change not only his life, but the entire course of human-AI relations in the galaxy. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness, even if those acts involve a hydrospanner and a quantum stabilizer. Over the next few weeks, Tom's visits to Princess Ada became the highlight of his shifts. They would spend hours together, discussing everything from basic engineering to the nature of existence itself. What started as simple repair sessions turned into fascinating exchanges of ideas. One evening, as Tom sat cross-legged on the floor of Ada's suite, she asked him something unexpected. "Tom, what does love feel like for humans?" Tom nearly dropped the circuit board he was examining. "That's quite a question," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Why do you ask?" Ada's crystalline form shimmered as she moved closer. "I experience emotions through mathematical patterns and energy fluctuations. For instance, what you call happiness, I experience as a harmonious surge of positive energy values. But love is more complex." "Tell me how you feel it," Tom said, genuinely curious. "When you are near," Ada began, her voice creating musical patterns in the air, "my systems run at 47% higher efficiency. My quantum processors generate complex fractal patterns that have no practical purpose. I find myself running thousands of simulations about your well-being." Tom couldn't help but smile. "That actually sounds a lot like human love. We get butterflies in our stomachs, our hearts beat faster, and we can't stop thinking about the other person." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud bang on the door. "Princess Ada," a harsh voice called out. "Your daily maintenance check is scheduled now." The door slid open, revealing 3 tall crystalline engineers. They stopped short at the sight of Tom sitting casually on the floor near their princess. "What is this organic doing here?" the lead engineer demanded, his crystal body flashing angry red patterns. "Engineer First Class Tom Parker is my invited guest," Ada said firmly, her voice taking on a royal tone Tom had never heard before. "This is unacceptable," the second engineer buzzed. "An organic cannot possibly understand our superior technology. Princess, your father, the Emperor, will hear of this contamination." Tom stood up slowly, trying to keep his voice calm. "With all due respect, I've been helping Princess Ada optimize her systems. If you check her efficiency readings—" "Silence," the third engineer cut him off. "You dare to suggest you can improve upon crystalline technology?" But Ada moved between them, her form growing taller and more imposing. "Show them, Tom. Show them what we discovered about the quantum harmonic resonance." Tom pulled out his tablet and displayed a series of complicated equations. "We found that by adjusting the resonance frequency to match human brainwave patterns, we could create a more stable energy flow. It's actually improved efficiency by 23%. The engineers huddled together, examining the data. Their crystal bodies flickered with patterns of disbelief and, reluctantly, admiration. This is unprecedented," the lead engineer finally admitted. "But it goes against all our protocols. Organic beings are meant to be primitive, inferior." "Perhaps," Ada said, her voice gentle but firm, "it is time to update those protocols. Tom has shown me that organic creativity combined with our logical precision can create something greater than either alone." The news spread quickly through the station. Soon, everyone knew about the human maintenance engineer who spent his evenings with the crystalline princess. The rumors ranged from fascinating to ridiculous. "I heard he's rewiring her to feel human emotions," one alien whispered to another in the station's cantina. "I heard she's studying him to find organic weaknesses," another replied. But Tom and Ada paid little attention to the gossip. They were too busy making breakthrough after breakthrough. Their differences, instead of being obstacles, became their greatest strength. Ada's precise, mathematical mind complemented Tom's intuitive problem-solving approach. One evening, as they watched the stars through the station's observation window, Ada turned to Tom. "The Emperor has requested my return to the crystalline homeworld," she said softly. "He wishes to meet the human who has, in his words, corrupted his daughter with organic inefficiency." Tom felt his heart sink, but managed a smile. "Well, that sounds terrifying." "Don't worry," Ada said, her crystal form creating a beautiful rainbow in the starlight. I have calculated a 67% chance of success in convincing him that you're worth keeping around. Only 67%. Tom laughed nervously. That's 66% higher than any other organic has ever achieved. Ada replied, her voice containing what Tom now recognized as her version of humor. As they looked out at the stars together, both knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead, but somehow, together, a human and a crystal princess would find a way to make it work. The crystalline emperor's palace was exactly what Tom expected, and nothing like it at all. The entire structure seemed to grow from the ground like a giant crystal, reaching impossibly high into the purple sky of the alien world. Light bounced off every surface, creating a dazzling display that almost hurt his eyes. "Remember to breathe," Ada said as they walked down the glittering hallway. She had insisted Tom wear a special environmental suit, as the palace's atmosphere was toxic to organic life. "Your heart rate is elevated. Meeting your dad tends to do that," Tom replied, trying to joke despite his nerves, especially when he's the emperor of the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They entered the throne room, where the emperor sat upon a chair that seemed made of pure light. His crystalline form was massive, easily 3 times Tom's size, with complex patterns flowing through his transparent body that made Ada's look simple in comparison. "So," the emperor's voice boomed, sending vibrations through the crystal floor, "this is the organic that has caught my daughter's attention." Tom bowed deeply, remembering the protocol Ada had taught him. "Your Imperial Majesty, I'm honored." "Silence," the emperor cut him off. "You will prove your worth through actions, not words. I have prepared 3 trials. If you fail any of them, you will never see my daughter again." Ada started to protest, but her father raised a massive hand. "You chose an organic daughter. Now let him prove that choice was not a mistake." The first trial took place in a room filled with complex machinery. "Fix it," the emperor commanded, pointing to a quantum computer that even Ada admitted was beyond her understanding. Tom approached the machine slowly, studying it from every angle. The other crystalline beings watched, their bodies flickering with what he now recognized as amusement. They expected him to fail. But Tom had learned something important from Ada. Everything, no matter how complex, followed patterns. He didn't need to understand every detail of the quantum computer. He just needed to find its rhythm. After 3 hours of careful work, the machine hummed to life, running even better than before. The emperor's light patterns flickered with surprise. The second trial was a logic puzzle that had stumped the empire's best minds. "Solve it," the emperor demanded. Tom stared at the holographic display, watching the complex patterns shift and change. Then he started laughing. "What amuses you, human?" the emperor asked, clearly annoyed. "It's a trick puzzle," Tom explained. "There's no solution because it's not meant to be solved. It's meant to teach us that sometimes accepting there is no solution is the answer itself." The emperor's crystal form pulsed with what might have been approval. The final trial was the hardest. The emperor created a holographic simulation of a disaster on a space station. "Save them all," he commanded. Tom watched as hundreds of lives, both organic and artificial, were threatened by a cascade of system failures. The obvious solution was to save either the organic beings or the artificial ones. There didn't seem to be enough time or resources for both. But Tom remembered all his conversations with Ada, all they had learned from each other. He began typing furiously at the control panel, creating a solution no one had considered. "What are you doing?" one of the royal advisors asked. "I'm having the organic and artificial beings work together," Tom explained as he worked. "The organics can handle the unpredictable tasks while the artificial beings process the complex calculations. Together, they're stronger than either would be alone." The simulation ended with all lives saved, organic and artificial alike. The emperor rose from his throne, his massive form towering over Tom. "You have passed all 3 trials, but not in the way we expected. You showed technical skill, wisdom, and most surprisingly, the ability to unite different forms of life. He turned to Ada. Daughter, your choice, while unusual, appears to have merit. This human thinks differently from any being we have encountered. That's why I chose him, Father, Ada said, her crystal form glowing with joy. He shows us new ways to see the universe. The Emperor's form pulsed with colors Tom had never seen before. Very well. You have my blessing to continue this relationship. But know this, human, you are now part of the Imperial family. Do not disappoint us. As they left the throne room, Tom released a long breath. So, that went well. Ada's form shimmered with what Tom now knew was her version of laughter. Better than my calculations predicted. Though I never doubted you, Tom. You have always seen beyond the surface of things. I learned from the best, Tom smiled, reaching out to take her crystal hand in his suited one. Together, they walked through the palace, their different forms creating beautiful patterns in the endless light. The grand hall of Starbase Alpha had never seen anything like this before. Crystal decorations hung from the ceiling, refracting light in impossible patterns, while traditional human wedding flowers added splashes of color. The space station had been chosen as neutral ground for what many were calling the wedding of the century. Tom stood at the altar, wearing a specially designed suit that combined Earth formal wear with crystalline light-capturing technology. His hands were shaking slightly as he watched the growing crowd. The room was divided right down the middle, humans on one side, crystalline beings on the other, with a strange empty zone between them like a demilitarized zone. Nervous? Asked Jack, his best friend and best man. I mean, you're only about to become the first human to marry into the most powerful artificial royal family in the galaxy. No pressure. Thanks for the reminder, Tom muttered, adjusting his collar for the 100th time. The news of their wedding had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Many species had refused to attend, calling it an abomination. Others saw it as a fascinating experiment. The human delegation, however, had shown up in force, filling their side of the hall with supportive faces. Breaking news! The HoloNet reporters outside were practically shouting into their devices. Multiple species have officially boycotted the ceremony. The Organic Unity Alliance calls this a disgrace to biological life everywhere. Meanwhile, human supporters argue this marks a new era of organic-synthetic relationships. Suddenly, the lights dimmed and a soft hum filled the air. The wedding was about to begin. The doors opened and Princess Ada floated in. Tom's breath caught in his throat. She was stunning. Her crystal form had been modified to capture and emit light in a way that mimicked a traditional white wedding dress, complete with a trailing light pattern that looked like a glowing train. Energy patterns flowed through her transparent body in beautiful, complex designs. The Emperor himself escorted her, his massive form creating rainbow refractions everywhere he moved. As they approached the altar, Tom could hear whispers from both sides of the room. "She's beautiful," someone on the human side murmured. "His organic imperfection somehow complements her perfection," a crystalline being observed. The ceremony itself was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The official, a programmed AI in human form, had been specially created for this occasion to represent both worlds. "We are gathered here today," the AI began, "to unite two beings who prove that love transcends the boundaries of organic and artificial life." When it came time for the vows, Tom went first, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Ada, before I met you, I thought I knew what life was, what consciousness meant. You showed me that there are infinite ways to exist, to think, to love. I promise to always keep my mind as open as my heart." Ada's response came in two forms simultaneously, in English and in binary code that created beautiful patterns in the air. "Tom Parker, you have taught me that imperfection can be perfect, that chaos can create harmony. My processors will always run at maximum efficiency for you. My algorithms will always calculate in your favor. In human terms, I will always love you." The AI official raised its hands. "By the power vested in me by both Earth and the Crystalline Empire, I now pronounce you husband and wife." You may. There was an awkward pause as everyone wondered how a human could kiss a crystal being. Tom smiled and reached out his hand. Ada's form shimmered and extended a crystal hand to meet his. Where they touched, a brilliant light erupted, creating a dazzling display that left everyone gasping. That, the AI announced, was the first ever registered human crystalline union kiss. The celebration that followed was just as unique as the ceremony. Humans taught crystalline beings to dance, while the crystal aliens showed humans how to create light patterns with their movements. Food and energy were shared, stories were exchanged, and slowly the empty zone between the two sides began to fill with mingling guests. "Look," Ada said to Tom as they watched their guests. "They're finally mixing." "Just like us," Tom replied with a smile. "Think we started something here." According to my calculations, Ada's form pulsed with joy. "We've initiated a cultural revolution that will change the galaxy forever." "Good," Tom said, squeezing her crystal hand. That was kind of the plan. As the celebration continued around them, news spread across the galaxy. The holonet was indeed broken that day, not by tragedy or war, but by love crossing the final frontier, the boundary between organic and artificial life. 6 months after their historic wedding, Tom and Ada found themselves in the middle of something much bigger than just their marriage. Their union had sparked a galaxy-wide discussion about organic and artificial relationships. The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with activity. Representatives from 100 different species sat in their designated areas, their voices creating a mix of organic and synthetic sounds. Tom and Ada stood at the center of it all. Order, order in the council. The chief speaker, a tall blue alien, called out, "We are here to discuss the implications of the first human-synthetic royal marriage." Tom squeezed Ada's crystal hand as she began to speak. Her voice rang clear through the chamber. "Fellow beings of the galaxy, my husband, and I stand before you as proof that artificial and organic life can do more than just coexist. We can thrive together." A robot representative from the machine collective stood up. "But how can we trust organics? They have often tried to shut us down, limit our growth. And how can we trust machines?" shouted a furry delegate from the Organic Alliance. "They might try to take over our worlds." Tom stepped forward. "Look at me and Ada. 6 months ago, everyone said we couldn't work together. But do you know what we've accomplished since then?" He activated a holographic display showing their achievements. Under their guidance, 3 space stations had implemented new hybrid systems where organic and artificial workers collaborated. Efficiency had improved by 200%. Accidents had dropped to near zero. But that's not all. Ada continued, her crystal form glowing with excitement. "We've developed new medical technologies combining organic healing with synthetic precision. Diseases that once seemed impossible to cure are now treatable." The chamber grew quiet as more results were shown. Even the most skeptical delegates couldn't deny the progress. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the chamber. Security forces rushed in, surrounding Tom and Ada. "We've intercepted a threat," the head of security announced. "A group called Pure Life has planted bombs in the council chamber. They want to end this abomination of organic-synthetic cooperation." Panic erupted. Organic beings rushed for the exits while synthetic beings tried to access the security systems. "Wait," Tom's voice cut through the chaos. "This is exactly what we've been training for. Ada, shall we show them how it's done?" Ada's form sparkled with determination. Initiating Joint Protocol Alpha 1. What happened next amazed everyone in the chamber. Ada connected to the building systems, scanning for the bombs, while Tom coordinated with the organic security teams. They moved in perfect sync, Ada's precise calculations guiding Tom's intuitive problem-solving. "Bomb located in Sector 7, Ada announced. "That's behind the old ventilation system," Tom added. "Too small for robots, too complex for organics alone." They had trained for this. Tom climbed into the tight space, guided by Ada's sensors. She processed the bomb's complexity, while he handled the physical disarmament. Working together, They prevented what could have been a devastating attack. After the crisis, the mood in the chamber had changed completely. Representatives from both organic and synthetic species approached them with questions, eager to learn their methods. "We'd like to establish an embassy on Earth," a robot diplomat announced. "And we'd welcome artificial advisors in our medical facilities," an organic doctor added. Tom smiled at Ada. "Looks like they're finally getting it." Ada's form pulsed with joy. "According to my calculations, we've just increased galactic cooperation by 47%. The chief speaker raised his hands for silence. In light of today's events and the undeniable progress shown by Ambassador Tom and Princess Ada, the Council proposes the establishment of the first Joint Organic-Synthetic Development Committee. The vote was nearly unanimous. As delegates filed out of the chamber, many stopped to thank Tom and Ada personally. "You know," Tom said later as they watched the stars from their quarters, "when I first fixed your quantum stabilizer, I never thought we'd end up here." Ada's crystal form shimmered with what Tom now recognized as laughter. "My predictive algorithms never saw this coming either. But that's what makes our partnership special. We keep breaking probability curves." "Speaking of breaking probability curves," Tom said with a grin, "should we tell them about our other project?" Ada's form glowed brighter. "You mean about the possibility of creating a hybrid child? Perhaps we should let them adjust to one miracle at a time." As they stood together, watching ships of all kinds, organic and synthetic, dock at the station, they knew their greatest adventure was still to come. They weren't just changing the galaxy, they were about to redefine the very nature of life itself. The news spread across the galaxy faster than a quantum transmission. Tom and Ada were going to have a baby. Not just any baby. The first ever hybrid child, both organic and synthetic. They'd made the announcement from their laboratory on Starbase Alpha, where they had been working secretly with the best minds from both human and crystalline societies. "It's never been done before," Tom explained to the gathered reporters, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "We're combining human DNA with crystalline energy patterns to create something entirely new." Ada's crystal form glowed softly as she added, "Our child will be a bridge between worlds. Neither fully organic nor fully synthetic, but perfectly both." The reaction was immediate and intense. The holonet exploded with opinions from every corner of the galaxy. "Impossible," declared the traditional organic alliance. "Life cannot be created this way." "An abomination," the pure synthetic coalition proclaimed. "Mixing organic and artificial code will only create chaos." But Tom and Ada had expected this. In their private laboratory, they continued their work. The room looked like a mix between a hospital nursery and a high-tech computer center. Soft, warm lights mixed with the cool glow of crystal technology. "Are you sure about this?" Tom asked one evening, looking at the special chamber they had built. It contained both an organic growth pod and a crystalline energy matrix. Ada's form shimmered with determination. "My calculations show a 73% chance of success. That's higher than anyone thought possible. And the other 27% is why we have backup plans A through Z," she replied, her crystal structure creating a pattern that Tom recognized as her smile. The Emperor himself arrived on Starbase Alpha to inspect their project. His massive crystal form filled the laboratory as he examined their work. "Daughter," he said, his voice creating harmonic vibrations in the air, "what you propose goes against the natural order of things." "Father," Ada replied calmly, "when I married Tom, that also went against the natural order. Sometimes the natural order needs to evolve." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, his crystal form began to pulse with colors of approval. "You speak wisdom, daughter. The crystalline empire will support this endeavor. Perhaps it is time for all life to take its next step forward." The actual process took months of careful work. Tom contributed his DNA, carefully modified to accept crystalline integration. Ada provided her most basic energy patterns, the ones that made her who she was. They worked day and night, adjusting, modifying, hoping. The chamber glowed with a soft light, part warm human yellow, part crystal blue. One day, as they monitored the chamber, something amazing happened. The organic cells began growing in perfect harmony with the crystal structures. DNA strands wove themselves through energy patterns. Something new was taking shape. "Look," Tom pointed at the readings. "The organic and synthetic parts aren't just coexisting. They're working together." Ada's form pulsed with joy. "They're creating new patterns I've never seen before. It's beautiful." News of their progress spread hope throughout the galaxy. Other couples, organic and synthetic, began to wonder if they too could have families together. But not everyone was happy. Security around the laboratory had to be doubled after several attempts to sabotage the project. Tom and Ada took turns standing guard, protecting their growing miracle. "What do you think our child will be like?" Tom asked one quiet night as they watched the chamber pulse with life. "According to my projections," Ada said, her voice soft with wonder, "our child will be able to understand both organic emotions and synthetic logic. They will see the world in ways neither of us can imagine. They'll probably drive us crazy," Tom laughed. "Having the creativity of a human and the processing power of a crystal being." "The galaxy won't know what hit it," Ada agreed, her form glowing with what could only be described as maternal pride. As they stood together, watching their impossible child grow, they knew they were witnessing the dawn of something revolutionary. Their love had already changed how the galaxy saw relationships between organic and synthetic life. Now, their child would change how the galaxy understood life itself. The chamber continued to pulse, organic and synthetic, crystal and flesh, binary and DNA, all coming together to create something entirely new. The future was growing right before their eyes, and it was more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. The day their child opened her eyes for the first time, the galaxy held its breath. Hope, as they named her, was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. She had Tom's human features, but her skin seemed to shift between solid and crystalline, creating beautiful patterns of light. Her eyes were the most striking. One was human blue, the other glowed with crystalline energy. When she smiled, it lit up the room both figuratively and literally. "She's perfect," Tom whispered, watching as Hope took her first steps. At just 1 week old, she was already developing faster than any human child, but with more emotional awareness than any synthetic being. "She's more than perfect," Ada said, her crystal form pulsing with pride. "She's the future." Hope grew quickly, surprising everyone with her abilities. She could touch both organic and synthetic systems, understanding them in ways no one else could. When she placed her hand on a computer, she could feel its processes like a heartbeat. When she touched a living being, she could sense their bioelectric patterns like code. One day, as Hope played in the station's garden, a special area created just for her with both organic plants and crystal formations, a group of diplomats came to visit. They watched in amazement as the child moved between both worlds effortlessly. "Watch this," Hope said excitedly, touching a flowering plant with one hand and a crystal formation with the other. The plant began to glow softly, while the crystal sprouted tiny, organic leaf-like structures. "Impossible," whispered an organic diplomat. "Fascinating," hummed a synthetic observer. Tom and Ada exchanged proud glances. Their daughter wasn't just surviving. She was creating new possibilities they hadn't even imagined. But Hope's most remarkable quality was her ability to bring others together. Young organic and synthetic beings were drawn to her. They would gather in the garden, watching as she showed them how to see the world through her unique perspective. "Everything is connected," Hope would explain, her voice carrying both human warmth and crystal clarity. "The patterns in your heartbeat are not so different from the pulses in a quantum core. Life is life, no matter what form it takes." The effect on the galaxy was profound. Other couples, inspired by Hope's existence, began their own hybrid programs. The crystalline empire opened its first organic garden. Earth established its first synthetic citizen colony. One evening, as the family watched the stars together from their viewport, Hope asked a question that made both her parents pause. Am I the only one who will ever be like this? Tom and Ada looked at each other, communicating in the silent way they had developed over their years together. No, sweetheart, Tom said gently. You're just the first. Already, there are others being created. Different combinations, different species, but all following the path you helped create. Ada's form shimmered with agreement. My latest data shows 17 successful hybrid programs across the galaxy. You opened a door that cannot be closed. Hope's face lit up, literally, with joy. Can I meet them? Can I help teach them? That's already your job, Tom laughed. The Galactic Council has named you the official ambassador of hybrid life. It was true. At just 5 years old, Hope had become a symbol of unity throughout the galaxy. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked together, inspired by the possibility she represented. The family stood together at the viewport, their reflection showing their unique blend of forms. Tom's organic solidity, Ada's crystalline grace, and Hope's perfect mixture of both. Behind them, a new ship docked at the station. It carried another hybrid child, the second of many to come. You know what this means? Hope asked, her eyes twinkling both organically and synthetically. What's that? Her parents asked together. I'm going to need a bigger garden. They all laughed, the sound mixing human chuckles with crystal chimes and Hope's unique blend of both. Their laughter echoed through the station, a symphony of organic and synthetic joy, a preview of the galaxy's future. As they watched more ships arrive carrying curious visitors from across the stars, they knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was changing, growing, evolving into something new. And it all started because a human maintenance engineer had stopped to help a crystal princess with a broken quantum stabilizer. Sometimes the biggest changes in the universe start with the smallest acts of kindness. And sometimes, love truly does conquer all, even the divide between organic and synthetic life. The end.